What's up, bro?
Hey, Fluffy.
Hey, man.
Hey. Okay. Thanks a lot for doing this. Usually, I just sort of send it out, but I think it might be interesting, um, to get developer feedback or something like that.
Oh, for sure. How do you pronounce
Um,
the title of your game?
it's the first word is Latin, so it should be pronounced Medici arms. But I was under the impression that a lot of people would just call it like Medice arms. So
Okay.
I'm good with whatever people call it, but officially it would be Medici arms because the name is based in Latin.
So, what inspired you to make this game?
I would probably just say I wanted to make a multiplayer game for a long time.
Hmm.
Um, but it just I was always sort of the type of guy who do like roguelikes, smaller projects, and so I never really got too invested in it. And eventually, I was like, I'm gonna make the big jump and try to do a multiplayer game. And Steam has a lot of like great tools in terms of like lobbies, etc. So I knew that doing a multiplayer game wouldn't be too much work
Hmm.
because I wouldn't have to set up servers, etc., like that, because I could just use the Steam framework. And so I have this idea floating around for a essentially like a battleship style game, but real time and like with human organs. And so I think for the longest time, I've always been, I guess, fascinated with body parts and viscera, etc. And so I figured it'd be an interesting marriage of the two topics, um, battleships and the human body. And then so with the inspiration of like cadavers, I was like, maybe I could actually try and do something. And so I wanted to create a game that was pretty simple, but was still it still had my sort of style and aesthetic to it.
Hmm.
Um, and so eventually I went at it, and I think it was only about a couple months of development. I don't think it was too long. Um, but that was about it. And then I ended up finishing the game, um, and it is what it is now.
That's awesome. How do you? So, do we need to add each other on Steam, or
Yeah,
how's this
so
work?
we can either, depending on how many people are playing currently, I mean, we could try just like queuing up standard in the lobby, but we'd probably have to add each other on Steam just to do like friend v friend.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and so I wanted to give players like two options. I didn't know. I mean, as a developer, we're not like too widely known, and so I knew that some people who wanted to play with their friends would probably want that option, and so I added just a simple friendly friend, and then
Hmm.
also added in a an option for people to queue up in a lobby-based system.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I can add you here on Steam.
Okay, sick. Yeah, that's
I'll
awesome
send.
because not everybody has somebody to play with, so that's sick that you have both systems.
Yeah. I wanted to make it as accessible as possible. This here is my Steam friend code. I wanted to make it as accessible as possible, but I knew that this was going to be a multiplayer game.
Hmm.
And usually I do a lot of single player games. Um, and so I wanted to at least give people the option to just throw it around with their friends, like maybe in like a Friday or Saturday night,
Uh
shoot the
huh.
shit a little bit. So
Yeah, I hate when I download like a game on Steam and I'm like, oh, this looks so sick, and it's just like, oh, you can only play it with your friends. And I'm like, oh God, I don't have enough friends for this. Jesus.
yeah, yeah.
So how long have you been doing game design?
So I've been doing game design for a long, long time. So I ended up using this was like I've probably been doing game design for at least 8 years. Um, I had a friend in middle school actually. Never really considered game design. Always loved games. But I
Mm-hmm.
had a friend in middle school, and he. I think this was for a school project or something a long time ago, and he essentially was. Submitting in this game for this school project, and I was so blown away by what he made. It was like super like um, simple, super like wasn't too complex. There weren't too many moving parts. I think it was I think just like a standard like platforming style game, and it was made in Game Maker.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so blown away by how cool the game was that I was like, I want to try and make something like similar to this. And so I ended up downloading it because I think they had a free trial system or something, and I started like digging around with all the features they had. And I was like, wow, this is great. And then that naturally sort of developed into a passion for
Mm-hmm.
game design. And then I think around early high school, I moved over to Unity because Unity was a lot bulkier. I was always sort of a 2D guy. I still am sort of a 2D guy because I have an art background. So
Yeah.
I would say my forte in game design would probably be artwork and stories and aesthetic. But I decided to switch over to Unity, and I made some really, really simple games. So there was one game I think I made that was about a worm, and you eat people by they had like different color shirts on,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd use the AWD keys to essentially switch between like the primary colors, and then some of them had like secondary colors, and then you'd have to press the right buttons to like eat them, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it hilarious because I never cared about optimizing my games at all, so they would barely run, and um, they weren't particularly good.
Oh.
And then I would say around late high school, I decided to create a very simple. Okay, but anyways, going back to what I was saying. So yeah, I decided to do like a full sort of game that had a little bit more meat than other games, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that game is actually on Steam, if I'm not mistaken. But it's nothing particularly good. I could probably send you a link if I can find it. But it's called Baptized Billy, and it's a really, really odd game. Really, really odd story. Didn't really understand game mechanics very much. I mean, I understood them in the terms of what makes games fun, but I didn't really put a lot of it. I didn't really mess around too much with some more minor aspects of the game, like getting levels right for soundtracks, etc. It was always just like game design. So very much seems like a high school project, and that was like I think middle of high school. I want to say super super small game. And then after that, I ended up going off to college and uni doing graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I enjoyed doing art a lot more than the coding aspect of it, but I was always using code um, to make the games. It was always a tool
Mm-hmm.
for me. It was never really something that I gave too much of passion about. And then afterwards, I decided to start up a game studio, and now I'm doing games full time. Um, of course, with a lot more experience now, because I feel like I had to try and fail a couple times to figure out what you're good at and what you're not. So
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I feel like even when I started doing videos, I just like started pumping stuff out, and I was terrible at first, but you never know until you put it out and people kind of tell you you're terrible at it.
yeah,
To,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. Uh,
But I think it's like naturally like the process of trial and error, and then
mm,
I think it's almost like a block of marble. You start out and you have all the different faces to you, and then you have to start chiseling away and see what you're
yeah,
good at and see what you're not.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
but yeah, I never did a multiplayer game. Wanted to try a multiplayer game, and so Medici no Arms is my first foray into multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Currently in pre-production for a new game, which is going to be. I can't give too much away,
Mm-hmm.
but it is going to be a roguelike platforming style game
I'll say.
that is has a lot of inspiration in the art world, in the fine art scene.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and a lot of there's going to be some Canadiana elements to it too in terms of
Mm-hmm.
architecture. Architecture is going to play a big part in the game, and so I think us Canadians are well known for having a lot of government buildings or old school buildings with the copper roofs that have turned
Mm.
green, and so I'm drawing a lot of Canadiana inspiration from that. And I think development is going to go a lot smoother than on Medici to Arms because once again, my foray is not multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of the reasons why I actually decided to make the game free on Steam. is because I knew that for a small multiplayer game, I'm the type of person where I really try to sell games fairly. And so there's a lot of AAA games that I'm not particularly fond of in their marketing and pricing, because nowadays in the world we live in, AAA games are going for $80-$90.
Yeah.
And so I think the latest Call of Duty was like $90, and Starfield's like $90. And it's like now we've broken past I'm talking in Canadian dollars, but it's probably like 60 or something
Yeah,
American. But
that's
it's
about
starting
right.
to, break past that now, which is insane. Um, but I'm always a firm believer of trying to price everything fairly based on what you get out of it. So
Yeah, that's super good. I hate when you buy something and it's like 10, 15. I don't know. I've had some games where it's like super short, but it's
yeah,
like it's really good. I don't know. It's a weird balancing act because
yeah,
some creators spend like I felt bad for one dude because you could tell he spent a really long time on the game, but it wasn't
yeah,
like didn't work, wasn't good, and tried to sell it for like $15, and I was like, you might have put like $15 per person of work into it, but
yeah.
you can look at your game objectively and tell it's not. And I felt bad for him, but I was like, you should have like released it first or tried like smaller projects and then try to sell it for
Yeah.
like something. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I get 100% what you're saying. I mean, I think that's just it right there is the way that I always like to do my game design, and this is something that I had to learn. Um, like the at the studio, I mean, the team is pretty small. We're talking like 2, 3
Mm-hmm.
people tops. And so what we're able to do is very much limited by manpower.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've sort of like realized this. And so it's very, very difficult, I think, to try and make that big budget game.
Yeah.
And the way I look at game design is almost like film design. And so, I mean, if you got a team of 6 to 8 people working on a film, odds are it's going to be a short film,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to be putting yourself through the ringer to try and get out a game, or to get out a film that is a feature length film with only 6 to 8 people. That's going to be a tremendous amount of work and needless stress. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but even like someone like Edgar Allan Poe, who did a lot of short stories, I sort of view games in the same sort of manner too with the short stories, where it's like you can have a really effective small game. I think
Mm-hmm.
Edgar Allan Poe mentions it as like the unity of effect.
Huh.
But you can have a game be small, but also very, very dense, and also sort of fits that vision of the unity of effect, where you have one sort of goal in mind. So, like, if you were going to make a multiplayer game, the goal would be just have be fun, or
Mm-hmm.
high paced action, or add a cooperative element to it, that's really great, that allows people to problem solve or come up with unique ways to solve challenges. Or if you had a first person shooter game, you could do that on a much smaller scope. You could make the game all about, like, there's a humor element there, perhaps, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're doing the game and you're designing it, you put a lot of emphasis in the writing and in the humor. Like, I think it was like a game by Rare called I forgot what it was called. I think it was Conker's Bad Fur
Oh
Day.
yeah. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, okay. And so it's like that's not the biggest game in the world. I mean, it was still made
Mm-hmm.
by I would say at least a double A size company,
Yeah.
but they still, I mean, the unity effect there would be humor, and also good gameplay in terms of fast paced action. And the humor is definitely there,
Oh yeah.
and the gameplay is definitely there. So I think they really succeeded in terms of that.
Yeah, I love when a game does something like different too, because back then that was like really edgy humor that like people hadn't seen before. I mean, you had
Yeah,
the South Park game, but people thought this was like a cartoon, like cute family game, but it was very edgy humor. So that was like something people. I love when you get a game, even if
yeah.
it's just something different. It's so cool when you see something new in a game.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like in terms of as a game designer and someone who can appreciate games, some of the biggest influences in my life would probably just have to be, I would say, like Edmund McMillan, Jonathan Soderstrom, who did, I think he's a Swedish developer. He did the Hotline Miami games. I think that's what he's most well known for, but he does a lot of independent games. And there's a great article. Is it an article or is it a video? I think there's a video online, but it's him just like discussing um, the way he pursues game design, or the way
Mhm.
that he decides to work around his limited resources, which is just making games by himself. And it's really interesting because he talks about I think rapid prototyping. I don't know if he worded it in that way, but that's what I sort of got from it. Is how
Mhm.
do you make a game with the resources you have, but you make it really, really simple for yourself as a developer, so that you know you can like finish it, but you still have a final product in the end.
Yeah.
And so I think he predominantly uses Game Maker Studio, or like Game Maker. But he's created some really, really cool games, and I think his turnaround time is like maybe like 2 months of
Oh wow.
development, um, which is absolutely insane to think
Yeah.
about, because some of those games are a lot heftier than one might think. Um, and so definitely his sort of take on that, and his view on game design in a smaller format, I think is really inspirational to me, just
Mhm.
because it's like, yeah, like this is definitely possible. You can still do it in a small scale. You just have to know how you tackle these problems, because you're not going to be doing a Call of Duty game. You're going to be
Oh yeah.
doing something that is unique to yourself and on a much smaller scale, right?
So how do I do this invite thing? I'm trying to figure it out. I've tried to click your name. I'm not really sure how to do it.
Okay, so I'll hop in the game here.
Okay.
So the basis of it essentially
Mhm.
is, you have your creature, your monster, very much inspired by Roman architecture,
Mhm.
or Greco-Roman architecture, and so you arrange your organs much like a battleship, but rather than gridlocking everything, I decided to give players free motion of the organs, so they
Mhm.
can go about and do what they please. And then each of the organs are going to have certain powers and abilities. So the majority of the major game mechanics, I would say, is left click is a fire. You can only fire once your power bar maxes up, which will be the power bar on the left. Hold on, I'll click on your game actually, and then we could probably get into it.
Okay.
Welcome back!
Bum, bum. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was like, dang man, I forgot to hit save settings, and I was just getting blasted. I was like, god dang, my bad.
And then also too, there's customization, if you figure that out as well. So the faces you can change.
Oh.
And so originally I just had 3 faces. I mean, as a developer, I'm very much into getting a lot of community feedback. And so I
Mhm.
figured maybe somewhere down the line, if people are really enjoying the game, I could do a voting system. And so I could just do new faces, and people could vote on the faces they want to have in the game. And there's also an RGB color slider that allows you to change the color as well. Um,
Alright, I should have resent it, but yeah, yeah, I made my guy green. That's my favorite color. Just
Yeah.
that's.
I don't know if anyone's playing right now, but we could actually try queuing up. So
Okay.
that way I can demonstrate the leaderboard as well.
Okay.
So I'm just going to restart my game here, and we can queue up, and so I can explain how that would work.
All right. Just let me know when you're ready to queue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Okay,
things
so
like.
then if you just click find game.
Searching. Hey.
Excellent. Okay. And then so by pressing the space bar, you'll notice there's a bar in your left-hand bottom corner that will sort of fill up as you press the space bar. And that sort of is your attack. So each of your organs sort of contributes to certain points. And certain, I guess certain, the power will increase based on certain organs you add, or the power will decrease based on other organs you add. And so I wanted to also add an element of strategy to it too. So determining where you put the organs is quite important. but also determining what organs you put on are quite important as well. And so there are some search organs. I'll even switch to, I have the discombobulate, or actually no, sorry, the freeze organ going right now. So, so that the freeze organ would affect how fast your bar replenishes for a short period of time. There's also the discombobulate organ that I got on right now, which is the purple looking one.
Shaky.
And so that one, yeah, does some screen shake. And then also it sort of makes it a little bit harder for the other player to attack you for a brief period of time too. The red organ, so the one that looks probably closest to a human organ, would be just like a standard like power one. And so that one is very much just there to give you that power boost. But once again, you can only have 3 organs at a time, so you have to figure out exactly what you like. And what your play style is, how you want to play. There's also a search organ as well, which allows you to essentially search for an organ, and it'll either show up a green or red bar. But we can go over all the organs and I can explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you switch between organs again? What was the...
Right click.
Oh, right click. Alright, sick. And the middle bars, is that the health of your organs?
Yes.
Okay. And so for the space bar, is it something where you rapid do it, and is the bottom left,
rapid.
Are you able to fill it all the way up?
Yes, you can fill it all the way up. So some organs actually affect how fast they fill up as well. So we'll play a game here, and then I'll explain when we go into the build menu. I can go over all the minutiae and the details. But essentially, you want to press spacebar as fast as you can to sort of fill it up, and then once that ready bar is showing, you simply just fire with the left click.
Okay.
So I think I got one of your organs here right now.
Oh yeah.
So we'll just
blasting it. Oh, there it goes. It's dead. Rest in peace, son. Dang.
When I was first playtesting the game with some playtesters, I had the organ hitboxes significantly smaller, and some games would last like 18 minutes or something, or like 10 minutes, because the hitboxes were so small that no one could find all the other organs. And so I was like, oh, this kind of takes away from gameplay.
It's impossible.
Yeah, so I think you got one of mine. All right, so I got 2 on you now.
Yep, you got 2.
So the strat that I sort of use is once I sort of find one location of it, you can sort of hit home and see, you know, once you have that one destroyed, move on to another one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I see. I was confused because, you know, the little bottom left blue thing. I know what you're saying. You fill up the big bar on the left side, not the bottom left bar. Because I was like, what the heck? Yeah. Yeah.
Good game, though. Good game.
Yeah, good job, man.
Thank
Murdered.
you. So, if you go into the build menu, I can explain all this. Because there are some strategic elements. So, if you notice, like figure 2, figure 3, there is an attack and then a charge stat. So these become important because you were to drag in, and it changes real time if you were to just drag in an organ, and it shows you. And so there are also abilities, which displays as well. So the one that has, it sort of has like a blue vein, red sort of blob is your search organ, and that one's is a fun one because essentially what you do is you left click. And it then creates this crosshair, this really big crosshair that is either red or green if it detects something. And so it only works for one organ because originally I wanted it to be 3 and that was way too overpowered.
Yeah.
So it only detects 1. But by adding it in, you can sort of see how the stats change. So it doesn't really affect your attack at all, but your charge goes up. And so how fast that green bar is going to fill up is affected by you adding in that organ. There's also the attack up organ. So essentially by left clicking, you then raise how much damage you do for the rest of the game. And so by keep clicking that, essentially you're going to eventually start one-hitting organs.
Oh, geez.
And that one is it looks like a pink with yellow veins. There's the triple organ. which has purple veins and then 3 yellow fleshy bits. And how this one works is it does significantly less damage, but you're able to deal damage to all 3 of the organs simultaneously.
Okay.
So you can start using these organs in conjunction with one another by stacking stats. So if you were to assign the power or the attack up organ, you could deal, or you could start stacking up how much damage you're doing in game, and then eventually you could hammer it home with like the triple organ, and so that would do triple damage with all the attack up, for instance. But of course, you're not gaining anything from adding the attack up. You're not getting any more attack, and you're not getting any more charge initially. But it does increase attack in game. So these are all sort of elements you have to sort of balance out. There's a defense organ, which increases your defense, which means that damage done to you is lessened. There is the discombobulate organ, gives you more charge, makes everything charge up faster. However, it doesn't deal as much attack as some other organs. So once again, everything to consider. And then the freeze organ, which can actually be quite annoying, because in playtesting I had to nerf that organ as well, because it would make the bar go way too slow. But the freeze organ essentially slows down your opponent's refill or charge meter, and so it makes it go significantly slower for a period of time.
That's neat.
But I think that's about it. And then it comes down to how you arrange the organs in the body. So there's, you group them together. Maybe, your opponent won't suspect that they're all grouped together. You can try to spread them out. So then strategy becomes really important as well.
Oh, that's super cool. You want to play another one?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
Oh, what were you going to say about the leaderboard?
So essentially when you go in the queue, there's a wins and a losses stats. So the wins and the losses are essentially determined by games you play in the queue. Originally, I was going to have it for games you play just with friends, but something I realized down the road is that you might just have some people who cheat at the game create, a Steam account just to, get in wins. And so I figured by having in the actual queue, you have to play real players, right? Rather than you just, adding your cheating account, if you will, as a friend, and then just farming wins that way.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to take it this far, but do you plan on doing like a seasonal kind of thing where if you rank so high on the leaderboard you might get something, or is that just maybe for a later project or something?
I was thinking about that. To be honest, I did not know how popular this game was going to be, because it is a multiplayer game and the entire game is relying on you essentially having a number of players playing the game. So a decent amount of in-game players. So that's the only downside to it. I did want to, I think someone mentioned this in the comments or in a review or something like that, but adding in bots. And so adding in a bot would be interesting to play against a bot, and have a little bit of artificial intelligence there. But I didn't know if it would be necessary based on how many people would play it. So this was sort of this is one of those projects where it was really fun to make, and to play with friends is pretty fun to play as well. But it's definitely not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be like a flagship product for the studio. Because we're shifting all of our efforts right now to doing this roguelike game. Which is much more up our alley rather than doing multiplayer. This was sort of just let's try to do a unique multiplayer game here and see where it goes, right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But I think it would be cool, maybe if a lot of people are enjoying the game, it might be cool to do something seasonal, or I even was thinking about doing maybe like a bracket system, so you could do tournaments, so a bracket of 16, bracket of 8, and then maybe get titles for that as well, maybe add in a couple more achievements, something like that. So that could be cool. But it's pretty much all determined on the player base. So if there are a lot of people who want it, I mean, as the studio will give it to them if they want more. But if there's not too much of an interest, then it's we're moving on flagship products that are more so for single player.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because we are indie. It's really hard to do multiplayer games on a large scale if you don't have a lot of people helping you. So
kind of hard to stay onto something anyways if it's not really getting a lot of feedback and whatnot.
Yeah. Feedback is quite important though, because that's, I mean, especially for indie studios, I feel like indie studios value feedback a lot more than AAA studios.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, like we're gamers making games for gamers. So I mean, we could have a team consisting of like artists, gamers, etc. And so I feel like you have a lot of suits who are just investing, their dollar into what other people want or what they think that other people want in terms of games. So like the next Call of Duty, if one game sells well, we'll just do a sequel because why not? Right?
This is pretty fun though, actually.
You enjoy it? Okay,
yeah.
I'm glad.
I like the activity you have while you're playing it. That's kind of interesting with the space bar and the...
Yeah, I wanted... The goal, I think, for the game, if we were to break it down into how we would describe it, is overstimulation. I wanted to... Originally, so when you get hit, you have the red that flashes, or, with the freeze, you have the blue that flashes. Originally, I had it set up so it was, like, strobing, and, like, I was like, I can't release this game because this is epileptic. It's really not good. I was starting to get headaches in game development. So I was like, okay, we can't do it this way. The screen shake is fine because that's not too bad, but like with the flashing lights, I was like, this is way too much.
Yeah, so, definitely if you're looking at it for a long time. Nice. I can't even. I actually forgot what my organs do, to be honest. I like the little, how the attacks, like the clicks have different little animations to it, like the yellow one has a star attack.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Maybe. I think you almost got me here, I'm trying to...
So, if you hit an organ, is there like a timer before you can hit the same one again?
It's pretty much determined on your ready bar filling up.
Okay.
Yeah, so the charge bar, you can pretty much hit whatever you want to hit, as long as that bar fills up. But if you shoot too early, it does no damage when you fire.
Okay.
So that's the caveat of the bar, is it has to display as ready. So you can't abuse that space bar, or you can't abuse the clicking function.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing you put the space bar in instead of just a click, because people would definitely use an auto clicker for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I auto click. If I'm like testing a game and somebody made it like impossible to progress, I'll definitely I'll let everybody know. But yeah. Oh, thanks, man. Oh, you got achievements, sick.
Yeah. So very simple. They're essentially just based on like number of wins that you get, and then you can check on the leaderboard too, and so you can see all the people who have played, etc. But on the topic of firing in the different shapes as well, this is sort of like a super minor detail, but I actually got this from Nintendo. A lot of Nintendo games actually do this. The sound, so I wrote the soundtrack for the game, and so the music and then all the music I did, the majority of the sound effects I did as well. But for the actual fire sound effects, so when you actually shoot something off, I actually made the sound effects sort of sync up to the music based on the key that the music is in. I think it's in D. I think the key to the music is in D. So it's almost like you're adding musical notes into the soundtrack when you fire. So nothing sounds out of tune, which might just be me being anal about about the small little details. But it's something that I got inspired to do from Nintendo, because Nintendo actually does it, which is insane.
Yeah. That's actually
if the soundtrack,
so cool.
Yeah, if the soundtrack changes in a game or something like that, for instance, like I think maybe Mario Odyssey or maybe Mario 64. I'm not 100% sure which one it was. But if the soundtrack like changes, the sound effect that also happens when you like go upstairs, like I think like the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, like walking upstairs sound effect will change its key based on the music that's playing.
Oh wow. Huh.
So
that's super cool.
Yeah,
I
was like, that is an insane level of attention to detail.
That's really good too, because you got those music people when they play a game, and then you'll like people like me wouldn't even notice because I have like bad sound detection anyways, but like people that love that kind of thing will like point it out to everybody, and then everybody's like, oh, I never noticed that before. That's so cool.
Yeah. But that's essentially the game. It's really, really simple, but as long as it's fun, I think that we've succeeded in terms of making a game that's enjoyable.
I hope it definitely gets more play, because it would definitely be fun to. I wish there was I don't know, a way to tell. Like I don't know. I kind of have like mixed feelings about lobbies, but like a way to tell who's like how many people are online. Because it would be kind of rough if you're like you don't know who's online and you're kind of like searching for a game forever.
Actually, that's great. I think I might be able to do that. I'm relying on the Steam, the Steamwork framework for all that, but I think there probably is a way. I think that'd be cool.
For your goal, I think you definitely killed it. It's like it's a really good game. It's just, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if there's anything else you want to talk about too in terms of the game or like next projects, I can't give away too much in terms of what we're doing, but I can try my best to at least explain, the goal of the studio and what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. I can ask some general questions. So, I think you said it's a roguelike platformer? Or roguelite? I get them confused, because roguelike, one of them's a dungeon crawler, and one of them's like, you get more stuff as you die.
So I think roguelite is like what's the game called? There's a game called Hades, I think, and that's where there is permadeath, but you gain resources, and so you will eventually reach a point where you're so good based on playing the game for X amount of hours that you become overpowered, and then you could essentially beat everything, and that's roguelite, I think. Roguelike would be essentially permadeath. You restart every single time, you don't keep anything, or you restart every single time you die, you don't keep anything.
Okay.
And so that's, I think Binding of Isaac is a roguelike. The game that we plan on making is going to be a roguelike. But there are, so essentially we're planning on also adding in like a gambling aspect to it. And by gambling aspect, I mean there will be a story element worked into X amount of levels in the game. So each time you do a level, you have the opportunity to gain resources, etc., which you can use to carry yourself further, and through that story develops. So there's also going to be a story there as well, that for the most part is pretty linear. But then after you complete the main story, you have the option to essentially keep going there's going to be a point system as well. So to keep going to see if you can gain more points. Okay. And that's like post story. So you have a lot of like AAA games that, you'll complete the main quests, you'll complete the main storyline, and then there's like added bonuses or added levels you can do afterwards. That's like almost like this, like the epilogue portion of the game, or the sequel portion of the game, but it's not a true sequel. And so we plan on doing something like that as well.
Okay.
Where you complete like X amount of levels, it's like 5 levels or something like that, and then the main story can conclude itself. However, if you die before the story concludes itself, you do have to restart, because it is going to be a roguelike. But once you complete that main story element, then you can go for a run to see how many points you can go for. And so you might only be able to collect maybe like, or gain like 2,000 points in the basic story element of it. But then after that, it becomes like an endless run. So you can keep going, and everything will be progressively becoming harder, or just becomes so difficult that it's like you have to, start programming bots to do it for you.
Just so I kind of understand in my head, like, so if you're playing it right, and say you beat like stage 1, 2, and 3, if you die, are you gonna have to go all the way back to stage 1?
Yeah, you're gonna have to restart the game.
God, I suck at those games. I'm so bad.
But however, there is I can't tell you the story element of it, unfortunately, but I'm sure I'm going to be sending it your way once we
I
get
appreciate it.
completing that project. But the element of the game in which it ties into the story is that the progression adds this level of stress to the gameplay, but it does. I mean, in terms of continuity, in terms of plot, it makes sense.
Okay.
So that way we want to give players an experience where it's actually going to put you in a situation where you really, really feel like the pressure's on, because in a real life situation where you'd be doing whatever you're doing, the pressure would also be on. I can't tell you too much about the specifics, but it takes place in the art world.
Yeah.
And so the fine art world, galleries, etc.
Yeah, that's cool that it has a story, because it kind of keeps the player, even if they keep failing, to want to do it. But God bless, I suck at. Oh man, I'm the worst at those games. If it doesn't have like a continue or something like that, oh bro.
It won't be. I will say it's not going to be needlessly unfair in terms of difficulty.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's going to be a progression in terms of starting easy, going hard. But if you start picking up the game mechanics on like first run or second run, the game will become easier for you. To actually complete the game probably wouldn't be too difficult for your average player, but to min-max on points, to get as many points as you can, that's when it becomes difficult.
Okay.
So there will be an element of the game where you have to collect items, and through the collecting of the items you gain points for the items you collect. However, some items might be a lot harder to collect than others, and so that's where the gambling aspect comes into play.
So like your first playthrough, there's not going to be like a ton of gotcha moments where it's like, oh, you didn't know this was going to happen, so you're dead kind of thing, hopefully.
No. There would essentially be a tutorial level which explains to you the game mechanics, and then it's like everything's up to you, but depending on the type of player you are, you might take more risks that could get, garner you more points. Yeah. But at the same time, if you decide to play it, nice and conservative, then you will essentially be able to complete the story, complete the game, and gain the satisfaction from completing the game. In terms of hours of gameplay, I think we're predicting around 15 hours.
Oh, that's really good.
Might be a little bit less, but there is an endless quality to it as well, because some people in the roguelike community love their endless runs, and so we want to be able to give that to players as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Have you guys, this might be way too far in the future, but have you guys thought of like a price range for it, or any idea on something like that?
I doubt it's going to be over $10.
Okay, that sounds really reasonable. Definitely for 15 hours of play, my goodness.
Yeah, and that's Canadian too, so I don't know what that is going to be in American. Probably like 8, something like that. I don't know what the conversion is going to be.
I have no idea either, bro. I'm bad at that.
Yeah, it's probably wouldn't be over $8 American. I wouldn't say. I mean, we're trying to focus, going back to everything we were talking about earlier on this call. I mean, we're trying to focus on games that follow that sort of Edgar Allan Poe unity of effect. So if we can succeed at what we set out to make on the scale that we plan on making it, then that's good enough for us. As long as the game can stand on its own and be fun and enjoyable. And I really love roguelikes because it adds in that element of replayability, right? And so there's going to be areas, everything is going to essentially just be randomly generated for the most part, minus some potential specific story elements. And so these areas that you go into every single time, for the most part, it will be different because your game will essentially be building itself every single level that you start playing. So yeah.
You might have already said this, but is it going to be like a 2D platformer, 3D platformer?
It's going to be a 2D platformer.
Okay.
And there might be, now this is something that we're still pitching with because this might add in an extra month of development time. There might be some minor RPG elements of the game.
Okay. That sounds neat.
But that sort of works itself into the story aspect that we wanted to do. I mean, I think we originally wanted to do something linear, but we could, of course, branch that out if time permits. But I think we're going for a development time of, it could be shorter, but I think around 2 months. I think we're aiming for November.
Oh, that sounds awesome. You want to play one more game? I want to try something real quick.
Yeah, we could play one more game.
Yeah. What was that? Oh, I wanted to try out that search function. I didn't actually use that organ last time. 1 second. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, it's kind of cool to hear it from the dev side. I mean, I've kind of talked to devs in like my Discord and stuff for like small, really small projects, but like actually hearing their thought process because.
No, yeah, I get that. I mean, as a person who sort of grew up loving games and then eventually started getting in the industry, I really appreciated, like, you know, you'd go on IGN and you would see like the behind the scenes footage of it. And so that was really important to me, I think, in terms of my development as a player, or as a player and as a game maker, because it's like you get inside their heads. There's actually a great series. I think it's one of my favorite games. This might be controversial, but Assassin's Creed Unity, just because I'm a big fan of French history, and so there's elements of that game that I really, really like. But I think there's a great IGN. It's either IGN or maybe it's just Ubisoft. Whoever it's posted, they do it behind the scenes of Assassin's Creed Unity, and it's actually really cool too because the studio's in Montreal, so it's in Canada. So it's interesting to think about all that as well. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of behind the scenes.
That's kind of weird. So I have 4 organs. So when I'm right clicking through, I have like 4 organs, even though I only have 3 in my body.
Oh, which ones are you getting?
Red one with the 2 yellow veins from the bottom and the top. I have the blue one with that's kind of holding the red kidney or whatever. And then I have the yellow and purple, and then I have the green, blue, pink one.
Okay. I think that just might be a small minor bug. We're still trying to work out some of the smaller ones, especially with the networking that we have to do, because we're transmitting data over the servers, etc. So that might be a small bug. But have you tried the search function out yet?
That's what I was trying to. Which one is the search function? I thought I equipped it, but I don't. What's it look like?
It's the blue vein with the red kidney.
Oh yeah. Oh, there it goes. There we go. That's pretty neat. So
it'll actually show up green once you actually hover, but it only works for one. So you essentially got to use it sparingly. So what I like to do is a strategy would dictate that you see what you can do with getting 2 of them out of the way, and then you switch to the search one, you quickly find it, and then you just, destroy it with the powers. Yeah.
So I hit something with it, but I don't see the green. Mine's still red. But I don't know. I might have already used it on accident and might mess that one up. So once you use it right and you scan over something, if you use it again, does it do anything or?
So all of the organs have the ones that are offensive organs versus defensive organs. The offensive ones do much more damage on their own. Each one of the organs does a super small amount of damage like on their own, so that way you're not like locked up if you only have one left that is like a defensive organ. But the search one doesn't do much in terms of, it's more like utilitarian. It's more there to help you with the other ones.
Okay. I think I used it too early or something. That's neat though. Yeah, that's pretty sick. So how's the defense up one work, kind of?
That essentially mitigates some damage that would be coming from an attack. So by using the defense organ, essentially the attacks that your opponent does will become less.
Okay, so do I have to hit organ for it to defense up, or does it always defense up if I use it?
You have to left click for all the organs to use their abilities.
Okay, so even if I use the defense organ right and I don't hit your organ, it's still going to defense up my...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would activate even if, for instance, I just gotta use it randomly. So that's cool.
Good job.
I think you almost got me.
I kind of cheated because you were letting me use it. I think I was hitting you while I was trying to figure out the search organ, so I kind of cheated on that one.
No worries. Yeah, I think you got it.
Win.
GG. But, yeah, I definitely cheated on that one.
Welcome
But,
back.
Good game.
did you do the voice, or do you have somebody in studio that does the voice work for you?
We outsource voice work
Okay.
sometimes for the most part. So yeah, so that was a voice. He did a great job.
Yeah.
He's in the credits. He does. I think he does a lot of like Victorian style work.
Okay.
But most of the voice work is all outsourced.
Huh. That's really cool. Anything else you wanted to kind of put out there?
No, I would say that's about it.
Yeah, if you want
I
to
would
do
s-
this again sometime, I'm down whenever. Just let me know, man. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
for
fun.
sure. Obviously, I'll keep in contact with you, and then probably closer to November,
Mhm.
is when I'll probably have something for you to play test as well, and we can do another one of these. I think that'd be
Okay.
a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
But yeah, I don't think I have anything else really to talk about, but hopefully you enjoyed it.
Mhm.
There are some, minor networking bugs that we still got to work out. It's a very early release. I think we're about 3 days in now in terms of release. So there's going to be a patch, of course. But other than that, if you enjoyed the game, I think we've succeeded in making a fun game.
Yeah, good job, man. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. I appreciate it as well.
All right, man. Bye.
Bye-bye.